Portugal is Balkan. And if you don't believe me, you will after this video. Now, you might be asking yourself, Drew, how is a country in Western Europe, the Iberian Peninsula to be exact, related to the Balkan region, thousands of miles away? I mean, to be fair, they even exist in very different time zones. But oh, just you wait. Portugal is a secret Balkan member. And it's been in front of us this whole time. To start, years of opening of the first McDonald's outlet. We have a majority of the Balkan countries here, somewhere in the 90s. Meanwhile, Portugal, also in 1991. A lot of their neighbors were opening McDonald's in like the 70s and 80s. How about Coca-Cola versus countries? We have this company's entire market value versus GDP. In all the Balkans, Coca-Cola is worth more than these countries. Oh, and you look at that, Portugal is included as well. To be fair, I guess Luxembourg also is not bigger than Coca-Cola, but that's beside the point. How about this? Portuguese sounds more like Russian. Now, you might look at this and think, oh, another clickbait YouTube thumbnail, but this video got over 2 million views. That's a lot of people that somewhat agree. Or Polish. How about the way different languages pronounce the Russian city of Moscow? I am obviously speaking English, and a lot of people say Moscow. However, this region says it more like Moscow, with slightly different variations. Oh, and would you look at that? Portugal is the outlier. Moscovo.
Moscow. Moscow.
To be fair, I think I also pronounce it the Portuguese way. Do you wash your hands with soap and water after going to the toilet? I figured there would be a lot more people saying yes to this question. Yet there's places like Italy and France under 70%. Oh my god, I don't know if I want to shake your hand. Meanwhile, Balkan countries like Romania, Bosnia, Serbia, all over 80%. And guess who else is over 80%? Should we even be surprised anymore? The game Among Us versus CSGO. Which game do you prefer? And unsurprisingly, just by looking at this map, I think Portugal vented. How did they get over here? They're the only outlier. Something sus. 1600s Portugal be like, I rule the waves, nothing can stop me. Versus Portugal now, I'm Eastern European. Well, actually, it's great that they accept that. Oh, look, we have Portugal shaking hands with Romania. Oh, and also Moldova. All agreeing to be Latin Eastern European countries. This is actually an incredibly powerful alliance. Do you believe in God? Percentage of people that believe in God with absolute certainty. In the UK, it's 12%. In the Netherlands, it's 15%. Germany's at 10%. France and Switzerland at 11%. Meanwhile, this region solidly over 50%. Oh, and here's Portugal, very close to that 50%. They're pretty much on par with Poland here at 45%. Getting closer and closer to breaking into these top 3 nations. The cost of renting an apartment. The average cost for a month's worth of rent for a 1-bedroom is based off the capital as a percent of local average net salaries. Places like Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland doing pretty nice. Then you get to places like Serbia and Albania, over 70%. But guess who has them beat? 84% Portugal? To be fair, Russia, Belarus, and especially Ukraine have it even worse. Still, once again, the outlier. Love how these maps are equally bad, but also good. Here's a good one. Rubik's Cube, European national records. For some reason, the blue countries are really good at Rubik's Cubes. These things are so complicated to me. All the countries in red means the national record is above 9 seconds. For North Macedonia, it's still above 20. But yeah, unfortunately for Portugal, it is 9.46. A lot of Europe have got their national record to around 7 seconds. This stuff's cool. I can't do it. I feel like that North Macedonia record, though, is beatable. Like, maybe if I just started practicing right now. Countries with mono-ethnicity. Countries where 85% of the population is a single mono-ethnic group. I actually didn't know Portugal would be on this list. Also, Bulgaria, Serbia, Bosnia, they are not. But Greece, Albania, Romania, Italy, obviously Ukraine and Poland. And this is similar to the entirety of the Korean Peninsula, Japan, China, even a lot of Southeast Asia. Like how Iceland and Finland are the outliers in the Nordic countries. Again, another reason why Portuguese might be a Slavic language. Basically, the way other people say the phrase kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Obviously, that's what we say in English, but in German they say hit 2 flies with 1 fly swatter, except those words are not in English. Obviously, that would be spoken in German. So Switzerland's very divided because they have a part of their country that speaks German, but the French side, along with all of France, says deal 2 blows with 1 stone. There's also the red countries that say catch 2 pigeons with 1 fava bean. How would you do that? What? But then as we head on over to the Baltic countries, Russia, Ukraine, they say kill 2 hares in 1 blow. Of course, hares are basically another word for rabbits. Romania and Bulgaria also use this. And, well, there you go. Kill 2 rabbits with 1 stick blow, they say in Portugal. This is one of those that's a head scratcher. Like, how exactly did that come over all the way to the other side of the continent? That's actually incredible, Portugal. Maybe the Portuguese just actively want to be Eastern European, so they change certain things the way they do things. But the fact that all this stuff could just maybe be a coincidence is getting hard to believe now. Does your country refer to it as tea or by chai? I feel like I use both words sometimes, but definitely tea is more popular in English. And this might have to do with the fact of how it was imported imported. If by land it's chai, if by tea it's by sea. So the majority of Asia say chai, even the Philippines and Southeast Asia, and that is because it was being imported through land, but a lot of Oceania, the very southern parts of Africa, and a lot of Europe had it imported by sea instead. Well, you know, there's one outlier, of course. This map has to confirm the theory of this video. Like, I don't even see how else Portugal cannot be. Like, what more proof do you need? How exactly did Portugal get tea through land, therefore calling it cha here? The countries that got tea from China through the Silk Road land referred to it as cha. It's because Portugal traded with China through the Macau port. That makes so much more sense. Remember, Cantonese and Portuguese are still the two official languages for this place. The Portuguese merchant from the 16th century traded with the Chinese to get a new exotic drink. We learned it's called cha. Eventually traded with the English. They disregard the name we told them and call it tea. God damn it. What else is new? Now, part of the reason there still exists a link between Portugal and a lot of Eastern Europe, maybe because of this. Remember in the 15th century, there was something known as the Treaty of Tordesillas? And in that, remember, it was the Portuguese that pretty much claimed all these lands over here. Well, to be fair, they claimed a lot of lands, but specifically that part we're talking about today. Meanwhile, Spain got a lot of the Americas. Man, look at this. Even Google agrees. Easiest Eastern European country to gain citizenship to. What makes Portugal the easiest country in Europe to gain citizenship? There are no physical presence requirements. You only need to hold your resident permit in order to qualify for naturalization. That definitely explains the number of Portuguese-speaking Brazilians in Europe. Population comparison between the year 2000 to 2020. The blue countries have a bigger population than they did 20 years ago. Meanwhile, the red countries have a smaller population. To be fair, it's kind of just been flat. I think they only lost like 300,000 people so far in the last 20 years. It's funny because we see these maps literally all the time. I don't always mention this similarity between Portugal and a different region of Europe, but it's very obvious. Like in this one we just saw last week, people who never access the internet. Portugal just has a very high population that has never accessed the internet. Not as high as Greece apparently, but pretty up there. Here's a new proposed plan to take Portugal and push it somewhere else. Now yes, this country will still be separated from this region by a sea, but they will be significantly closer still, just across the Black Sea. I don't think you'd want to border Russia though. That usually doesn't work out for their neighbors. Countries using kurwa. There, I think that is probably the right way. I still need to work on that. Now this is a word that's actually been floating around a lot of Eastern Europe and the Balkans, and of course it has eventually made its way over to Portugal, but also Spain too. There are also reports that they might also say this in Italy as well. Of course, this is a bad word, keep that in mind. There's also slightly different variations of it. This word is actually getting so popular, there's even a section talking about how maybe Indonesia even says it. How in the hell did it get all the way out there? We talked about this before, but there's got to be some sort of link that's going on between the Romance languages and why maybe Portugal has a lot of similarities to this zone. Romania is like this strange outcast Romance language brother, but then again, Portugal also is really on the outskirts here of this map. And then who knows what those languages do overseas? Obviously, they speak Portuguese in Brazil and a couple spots in Africa, also East Timor and Macau, which we mentioned. What is the best country to live in Europe? Poll answered by over 1,000 people. Over 100 picked Norway, but the winner is Switzerland with 117, just one more over. France, Germany, and the Netherlands getting good votes. Damn, Serbia with 1, Croatia with 12, Romania with 12, 3 for Albania. Crazy that Russia got 3 considering they've got so much population compared to everyone else. And, well, there's Portugal. Insane that Andorra got 1 vote considering what? There's like 20,000 people that live there. More like 80,000, but close enough. You know, I was gonna say this is one of those polls that really just reflect country's own population, but since Switzerland won, it doesn't all have to do with country's population. Also remember, they don't necessarily have a bunch of English speakers there either. You know, sometimes these English-speaking polls are skewed by English-speaking nations, even if it's like a second language. Still, I'm glad to see 18 people representing the Portuguese out here. I'm still so disappointed I never got to visit Portugal. I was this close to visiting Lisbon. Gonna have to do it next time. I gotta see this Eastern European stuff for myself, especially considering the world according to USA's travel advice. If you didn't know, we have 4 different recommendations here in the US. Green, exercise normal precautions. Yellow, exercise increased caution. Orange is reconsider travel. And red, they highly recommend you do not go. And bam, we here in America love ourselves a lot of the Balkan countries, Eastern Europe, the Nordics, and oh look at that, Portugal. I remember this time we did have a big problem with this region in Europe. A lot of this stuff has to do like with politics. There are some countries like Mexico where they're actually divided individually by state, and obviously this stuff is constantly changing over time. But yeah, the USA loves you, Portugal. They also love to move New Zealand out here in the middle of the Indian Ocean for some reason. Portugal is Eastern European, says this guy with low IQ that probably doesn't understand geography. No, just look at a map, it's clearly not, says the average IQ person. Then there's the true top 1%. Portugal is Eastern European. These people know because they already saw all these maps. You can't denied anymore. And big thanks to my patrons.
DrewI'mYourDadBackWithTheMilkLookOutside.
Kansas was mentioned. DOOCHBAGGINS. aPhatNarwhal. Carmel Amateur. Archaeology. Beautiful-MEGAN-Underwood.
Fredrik
Henrik Hedlund. InquisitorXarius.
Traven's annoying friend.
KirinoIsBestGirl.
LuxembourgLover.
RyeThePie.
I love
The
it.
Mexican 760.
And ZaneyBoi.